My friend had a terrifying experience in her new house, but it gets way worse after she calls a priest to help. The scariest part is this isn't made up or part of some creepy pasta. This happened to my friend. The first time my friend heard a scream in the night, she thought it was a dream. She was living by herself in an old farmhouse she had just bought. It was massive with lots of rooms. But that night she woke up because of a scream. She thought maybe it was a bird outside or an animal, so she went back to sleep. But then she heard it again, a blood-curdling scream. My friend thought that something was seriously wrong, so she got out of bed and started looking around the house for the source of the noise. She even went into her basement, which was full of junk and spiders. She found nothing. So she poured herself a glass of wine and sat down on the couch to watch some TV. Then she heard another scream. This time it sounded like it was right outside her window. She got up again, walked over to the window, and looked out into the darkness. There was nothing there. Then she noticed that one of her window shutters was slightly open. My friend shut the shutter all the way, locked the window, and went back to the couch. She thought it must have been the wind. And after sipping her wine, she returned to bed. The next morning after, of course, not sleeping at all, she checked outside to see if anything could have possibly caused the noise. She saw that one of her flower pots had been knocked over, but that was it. So she figured that perhaps a wild animal had gotten in her garden and made a run for it after she screamed. She didn't think much of it until 2 nights later, when she heard the scream again. It was followed by heavy footsteps in the attic above her bedroom. My friend was terrified, so she called the police, but they said that since no crime had been committed, there was nothing they could do. They told her to call animal control if she thought it was a wild animal. So my friend called animal control, who came out and set a few traps, but they found nothing. One of the officers even went up into her attic and checked around. He said that it was probably just squirrels. Well, the next night she heard the screams again. This time, heavy footsteps were heard in the walls near her bed. The animal control officer suggested that she'd get an exterminator to check for raccoons or possums. So my friend did. The exterminator found no animals, but he did notice that there was a hole in her wall. He said that the hole wasn't made recently, but it was big enough for a small animal to crawl through. The exterminator patched up the hole and told my friend to call him if it happened again. But it did happen again, and my friend was at her wit's end. She decided that she needed help from a professional, someone who dealt with things beyond animal control. That's when she called a well-known priest who everyone in town knew. The priest arrived at the house and blessed it while saying prayers. My friend told him about the noises, and he suggested that she go with him to an antique store that sold religious items. At the store, the priest told my friend to buy some holy water, a silver cross necklace, and a small statue of Jesus. He also told her to light a candle every morning when she wakes up, and to pray before bed. After hearing this, my friend thought that maybe the priest was taking advantage of her fear and desperation. She didn't buy anything from the store, and instead went home and tried to make sense of the commotion in her attic. She decided to go up there herself and look around. As she climbed up the ladder, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps. She reached the top and started searching around. Suddenly, she felt a cold breeze, and she saw that one of the floorboards was moving. My friend stepped onto the board and it gave way, revealing a dark hole beneath. She couldn't see the bottom of it, though, because it was too dark. My friend called the priest, who told her to come back to his church that night at midnight. When she arrived, he gave her a small metal container filled with holy water. He explained that she had to pour the water into the hole in her attic and say a prayer. My friend did as she was told, but the moment she stepped back, more floorboards broke and she fell through. She landed on something soft and she cried out. The priest rushed over and helped her to her feet. He sprinkled her with holy water and led her out of the house. My friend was shocked and confused. She asked the priest what was under the floorboard, but he wouldn't answer. Instead, he told her that she shouldn't be going into the attic alone anymore, and that she should let him handle it. For the next week, the priest came over and performed an exorcism in the attic. My friend never went up there during the day, so she had no idea what he was doing. At night, though, she would hear chains dragging and guttural screams. Every morning after he left, she would find the place where he'd been standing blessed with holy water. After he'd been performing the exorcisms for a week, he finally stopped coming. My friend was happy at first because the noise had stopped, but then she started finding strange things around her house. First, it was a small ceramic doll, and it was a book written in a language she didn't recognize. And then it was a music box that played a hauntingly beautiful tune. One night, my friend was woken up by the music box. She hadn't even realized that it had been playing until she had been listening to it for a while. It was coming from her closet. She opened the door and found the music box on the floor. Then she heard a voice behind her. She turned around, but there was no one there. Then she heard it again. This time the voice was right next to her ear. "Help me," it whispered. My friend screamed and ran out of the house. She hasn't been back since. And no one knows what's in that house now. The local priest won't even go near it. My friend is still looking for answers. One thing's for certain, whatever's in that house doesn't want to be found. That's all for tonight. Remember, if you want to see more short videos from us, stay tuned. See you next time.